In today's video, I want to go on and continue our journey through light and dark with this work behind me that I'm going to show to you now. And I invite you to have a first look and inspiration and open up to it just before I tell you anything about it. Find your own state, your own view and your own perception of this work. So in today's video, I'm presenting you this work entitled Dance from 2016. It's painted with ink on canvas. It is from a series of works entitled Duels and Duets. It's about the fight, so people fighting and people dancing with each other. So it's about conflict and peace. And you can see two parts here on this painting, and these parts are actually anthropomorphic figures. You can recognize them, if you like, by the earlobes here. And you see two bodies. One is facing towards us. This is the head, the face. This is the shoulder and an arm. And here's the other body facing to the other side. So it's the back that we're seeing, and this is the back of the head and the back of the upper body, the back itself, right? And what's interesting about this work, what I was exploring here, is this quality of this balance point between two states that are contradictory, like between fight and between peace. So we cannot really see if they're fighting or dancing with each other. It could be both. So there is a moment in between those two opposites that is shown here. And so we have two figures, we have two states of being, peace and fight, and everything in between. And we also have this light and darkness playing out here. And what is interesting in this work and in other works from this period is that there are areas, and this is what I played with in this one, where you actually cannot really see what is happening here in the darkness. You think it, you just complete it in a way in your mind. And that's so interesting because this is something that the mystery, the darkness does. It invites us, it shows us some fragments, right? Some parts of a whole, but we don't perceive the whole thing. We don't perceive the whole body. We perceive just a few enlightened parts, right, here and here, but we don't see what's going on in the darkness. We can just assume what it is that's going on there. But in a way, our mind, our eyes, is always trying to make sense, to connect the dots, to make sense of this, and use these fragments to build a whole. So we're constantly putting things together, and this process is something that is actually mirroring our state of being. So how we put things together, how we continue some shapes that are actually lying in the darkness, how we perceive them to be as a whole, tells a lot about ourselves. It tells a lot about our state of being. And this is what's so fascinating about darkness and shadow work, if you like, for me, and what I've in a way explored in these works, is that we pull out of the darkness, we perceive in the darkness what we are. So that means that what I see there is my current state of being. It's not the truth per se, or not the truth per se, it's just a mirror. Because it's the state of the darkness to offer everything. In the darkness you find the good parts, the bad parts, whatever. And it's you who gets to decide what you pick out, pull out of this darkness. And it's actually your emotional state of being that pulls out what's into the light, what's in the darkness. So you can pull horrific things out, but you can pull beautiful things out. Once you start this movement and make the first step into this darkness, you become aware of all possibilities, and you get to choose through your emotional state what you want to pull out of this. And it's not that you're afraid of the negative parts. You are aware that they are there, but you are also aware that everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is there. And you can pull out what you want to pull out. So shadow work doesn't mean that we have to deal with the negative things constantly and just the negative parts and suffering and everything. I've explored this idea in this way also in this work entitled Dark Light. The title alludes to this phenomenon that there is a dark part of the light and the light part of the darkness, and that we basically are not able to perceive the one without the other. So there is this dance between the two that can be also a conflict. It can be everything in between, because light and darkness are just the very, very ends of this polarities, right? So we have a lot of gray, shades of gray in between, that are like an infinite number of possibilities that we can explore. And in the end, of course, it's about both dancing, being together, and complementing each other in order to create things, in order to make things visible. Just like in this work, you wouldn't be able to perceive anything if it wasn't for the contrast between the two. So this contrasting and complementing opposites, this is what this work is about. In this work entitled Corona, which is not about the virus but rather about the sun's corona, I explored this idea, the idea of how we perceive the darkness and the light in terms of, I can only see a flashlight if I put something in front of it and make it dark. So if I look into the light, I'm only able to see light and nothing else. If I'm looking into the complete darkness, I'm only able to perceive darkness and nothing else. And when you have a source of light and you put something in between, like your hand, because you're blinded by the light, you're suddenly capable of seeing the light at all, right? And it's the opposite with the darkness. When you have everything dark, it's the light that enlightens the darkness. I invite you to ask yourself, where in your life are you experiencing a state of conflict? Where in your life are you experiencing a state of peace? Where is the peace in the conflict, and where is the conflict in the peace? And what I mean by that is that each and every one of these situations has the seed of the opposite within. It's our perception of the situation that enables us or forces us to see it the one or the other way. And once you retrain your perception to be able to perceive both outcomes simultaneously, both possibilities simultaneously, the peace and the conflict, the dance and the fight, you're able to instantaneously create harmony. in a situation. Because you don't get to decide it's this or that. It can be both at the same time. That may sound weird because our experience in this reality hasn't been like that. But in the end, it's not about either light or dark, because both are needed. There are two sides of the same coin. There are two sides within us. So we would be incomplete if we had only one without the other. So it's not about the two fighting and saying, I'm turning into light and I'm turning into darkness. It's about the play of the two, enjoying the play between the two, working with the two, because they're complementing each other. Darkness isn't bad, light isn't good. It's not about that. It's both. It's about both being creative forces. Just like within you, these two are the creative forces that represent every polarity, in fact. Men and women, high and low, within, without. Okay? So play with this and let this work inspire you to find out more about this balance point between two states that are actually contradictory. And also go deeper into these areas of the work where the seen parts, the visible parts disappear, and where you continue the work, the bodies, the forms, the shapes, without anything being actually there. And explore where in your life are you continuing a story, continuing fragments of information, fragments of states of being that aren't there at all. And we are making it up, right? Assumptions about other people. We see something, we see a quality, we see emotion, we see something in another person, and then we start to tell ourselves a story about the whole thing, which we cannot perceive actually. A huge topic, but so crucial right now for all of us. So this is why I invite you to really go deeper into yourself and discover these inner mysteries that are within you. And I'm sure this is something all of us do at some point in their lives. This is the dark night of the soul. And art is something that can open us up to this process without us needing something disruptive in our lives to shock us into looking into this darkness, into our own mysteries. I talk about these concepts more in my new art manifesto entitled BEARTHUMANITY, and I invite you to go to the website and have a look there and read what I mean by that. Because I perceive my art and art in general as a metaphysical tool for self-exploration, and I invite you to use my artworks as such. You can also visit me in my studio in Vienna and see the works in flesh and blood. I also have a website and a web shop where you can go to and see available artworks from this period, even though there are not many left. So if you're inspired by this and want to get in touch, I invite you to do this via email. I will leave you with the work behind me to have your meditation and your self-exploration, and we see each other in the next video soon. Bye-bye.